When I joined the division 3 years ago, our harms were high and our complaints were high. We've seen a really big reduction in our harms. For example, last month we only had 4 moderate harms in the whole division. That's never been heard of before.
I think we've continued to make huge improvements, and very particularly around our service user engagement and involvement in our services. And it's recognising that whilst you absolutely need systems and processes in place so that the staff know exactly what to do, when to do it and how to do it, and ensure that our services are safe, it's about recognising that we also need to apply an individualised approach for each and every woman and family.
From a personal experience, I have a very elderly mum who visits quite different services quite frequently, and I see firsthand the consultants using and the clinicians using our electronic patient record frequently to be able to see. She's involved with different specialities and different agencies, and they can pick up very quickly. She's not the best historian, she's 94. They can pick up very quickly what one speciality has said and what decisions they've made.
We take incidents that have happened within the trust, patient stories. We take stories from medical staff and nursing staff of how things, if things have gone wrong and how we've tried to improve them, and the lessons we've learned from that.
We feel as though we've got an open and honest reporting culture now. We do encourage staff to report incidents, and staff now have reported over 14,000 incidents in a year. That has now become static, but we are within the England average for the size of the organisation.
We would like to be one of the safest organisations in UK. That's our intention. That's a huge challenge, but here we are 5 years ago where our mortality was down to 120, which is way above the national average. Now we are 89, which is just below the national average, which is we feel very proud of.
I mean, lots of changes. I think one of the big ones that we're working on currently is the e-requesting project within Lorenzo. So instead of filling in handwritten blood bags and x-ray cards, we're actually doing them electronically through Lorenzo.
It prints labels out on once we've bled the patient or requested the radiology results, so we don't have to ask them again what's the spelling, what's the different labels, writing them out. It's very rewarding to see something that we know can benefit both clinicians and patients, and that it was accepted so well within the hospital.
Well, what we recognise is that we could make better and more effective use of resources. So by using telemedicine, what it means is less travel and it's more convenient for patients, but also for staff. We recognise that we've got people who work in Lancaster, say in the morning, who are then trying to get down the A590 to get to Barrow in the afternoon. So if we're making life better for the patient, better for staff, I think that's got to be a good thing.
You were called a preceptorship midwife, I would say, as a band 5 when I first started, but it wasn't nowhere near as structured as what the girls are getting now.
For the better, I think the Trust has embraced digital technology a lot better, and I think they've actually been a vanguard. I think nationally, this Trust has been a vanguard for a lot of technological changes. For instance, all our training pathways are now online. We have a personal account for all our training. We can easily go in there at a click of a button and see exactly what we need to do, what's outstanding, what we need to refresh our skills in and remind ourselves of.
We specialise in water births. We've done an aromatherapy course, so we're using aromatherapy, and we've just got the protocol and guidelines for the Trust set out. There's about 7 midwives in the Trust that are all trained in this.
I get to train all staff throughout all departments, from maternity to inpatients and outpatients, and this is the sort of the fun stuff, being on the projects on the wards and in the departments and working nights and weekends with the people on the shop floor. What I felt like when I first started is we sort of were left to do it on our own, so and at the end of, the year, because it was just the year, and don't get me wrong, I felt supported, and I felt, it was still a really lovely place to work. But it's nowhere near as detailed and as structured as what the girls have got it now.
I've been here 30 years, and I think during that time, in the areas where I've been involved more with the wards and the clinical side of things, I certainly think we strive far more to look after the patient as a whole.
I think the place is changing because it's recognising challenges. I mean, one of the core values of the Trust is care, and if you talk about care, people think it means making me feel good or kind, but sometimes care means having the courage to ask some hard questions and to deal with some difficult issues.
So we have 18 prompts, and we look at environment, we look at medicines management, we look at documentation, we look at patient safety, but we also talk to staff, and we also talk to relatives and patients as well. And that's where we get the really rich pickings, really, of how the ward is really scoring, because we can tick to say that it's right, but we need to confirm that.
It is a nice place to work. Everyone's really friendly and stuff like that. And you know a lot. I knew a few people before I came here. I say my mum works here, my auntie works here as well. So that was, I had a friend who showed me around a little bit, which made it nicer for me.
I'd like to provide opportunities where staff can get together, where staff can have fun, rather than it's the day-to-day chore of getting around, doing what they have to do in their part of the hospital where they work. Getting out, having fun, being fit and healthy, getting very muddy and wet, it can sort of bring people together in a way that being in a uniform in a hospital with a lanyard does never give.
If you care about something, if you have passion about something, you want to change it. And I think there's a greater realisation that in order to care properly into the future for the health service as a whole, and our trust in particular, we've got to ask some hard questions, we've got to change some of the practices and the way in which we work, and that's always difficult because we're all creatures of habit and we like things to stay the way they are.
One of the important things is how you challenge the bad things. I think that's one of the things. People actually can openly talk about things, actually telling about problems, and I'm very sure that you get a response, and because myself I actually done that. I actually addressed certain aspect what happened within the executives, and I got a good response and some sort of solution. I think that's very important.
I've worked at the hospital for about 17 years now, from being a porter to working at the education centre and running resource courses and then moving into informatics. But from working with clinicians and care providers, it's given us a massive scope to actually get their input on what works and what doesn't.
We have joint meetings with the trust and the unions, you know, where we can put our views across, or if there's any specific areas we feel that need to be looked at. I certainly feel that I've been listened to.
As a department, we've undergone pretty major changes of recent with the outpatient sourcing to Lloyd's, but you know, in-house we've made a lot of changes too, reducing our error count with our daily huddles and our lessons learnt bulletins.
So we no longer work in silos. You know, we've broken down those boundaries in terms of permissions to act and permissions to work. And if a volunteer or a member of the public have a great idea, this document will allow them to bring that idea forward, and it could be through a listening event. So we hold lots of listening events across our localities. So individuals can bring an idea forward. We can look at the document to see how that fits into the trust and where's best to position that idea. And so this document will allow that to happen.
I think the response to the challenges, you know, for example, the nursing staff have had a completely new computerised care planning, and that hasn't been without its trials and tribulations, but we're getting there. So they are responsive to the ever-changing, you know, themes within our IT world.
When I first started, the management structure within the trust was very dictatorial. It was very, very top-down.
It's a lot more open than it used to be. I think it used to be, if you didn't know about something in a department, you didn't know about it, whereas that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
I feel as though I'm listened to. I feel as I have no qualms at all about going to any of the board for advice, which is really good, because I think probably 4 or 5 years ago I wouldn't have felt like that. And I equally think the staff feel as though they can get their messages via the systems up to the board as well.
I worked for the trust between 2008 and 2011, and then disappeared off for about 4 years. And I've come back, and I really have noticed a big difference about the place in those intervening years. It seems as though there's very much more, you know, very much can-do place, a lot of enthusiasm around the place. It does sort of feel a very different place than the one I left sort of 4 years ago.
We've still got a long way to go. We've still got a long way to go, but I can see an improvement in there. Some of the things that have been put in place, some of the feedback that I've sort of received back from staff, that there's a more staffing and there's sort of more leadership, which I think was probably lacking before. So I can see a really good improvement there.
The board are very interested in what's happening, and have had thank yous from the chief exec to say, you know, what a difference that in that short space of time that she's seeing. So if that's coming down positively, and the board are very responsive to my proposals for change, and I've not had any resistance at all, then I think that that's a good thing and a good start point to move forward from.
Management are that much more accessible. They make themselves available. You know, I've met the chief executive, I've met various other members of management team, and I'm very pleased to say that there are mechanisms now within the trust for feedback.
So we're in the second year of a partnership programme with NHS employers, and we're part of about 20 other trusts right across the country to help to learn from each other about our approach to inclusion and diversity. And in the first year we were actually awarded the Inclusive Team of the Year award from NHS employers, and since then we've also been named as in the top 15th in the top 50 inclusive employers, and actually the top NHS trust in that list.
For almost 3 years governor, I was ashamed to say I am governor. I am proud now to stand in front of public and say, look, I am a governor of Furness General Hospital. I am Morecambe University Hospital governor.